Story 1. The Abandoned Hospital, Secrets Beneath the Basement. The story takes place in an old hospital deep within a dense forest, far away from the city. This hospital was once a treatment center for patients with strange and rare diseases, but it had been abandoned for over 30 years following a mysterious fire. Rumors say the hospital is haunted by the spirits of patients who died in the blaze and by the horrifying experiments once conducted by its doctors. A dreary day, a group of 4 friends, Nam, Lon, Hung, and Mai, decided to explore the hospital on a stormy night. Nam, the most curious in the group, had found an old map of the hospital online and was eager to see the rumored mysteries with his own eyes. They brought flashlights, cameras, and a few simple tools, unaware of the unimaginable horror awaiting them. As they passed through the rusty gates, a chilling air engulfed them. Even though it was the peak of summer, the hospital walls were covered with moss and eerie graffiti. The sound of wind whistling through the broken windows resembled the mournful cries of lost souls. The mysterious basement. While exploring, the group discovered a large steel door in the basement, secured with an old padlock. Hung, curious and daring, used a crowbar to break the lock. As the door creaked open, a foul, moldy stench wafted out, forcing them to cover their noses. Behind the door lay a dark corridor leading deep underground. Along both sides of the hallway were small steel doors, more like prison cells than hospital rooms. The walls bore deep scratch marks, as if someone had desperately tried to escape. Some doors were ajar, revealing rusty metal beds, chains, and decayed medical instruments. Lon burst into tears upon seeing dried bloodstains splattered on the floor. Mai, the most timid, repeatedly urged the group to leave. But Nam discovered an old notebook on a table inside one of the rooms. The pages were filled with messy handwriting detailing inhumane experiments the doctors had conducted to cure their patients. The ghostly presence. As they ventured further, Hung's flashlight suddenly flickered and went out, plunging the group into darkness. Footsteps echoed softly yet ominously behind them. "Who's there?" Nam shouted, but only his own voice echoed back. They began to sense the presence of something inhuman. A shadowy figure emerged at the end of the hallway, a woman in a tattered hospital gown, her hair disheveled and covering her face. Her glowing red eyes stared at them, and she whispered unintelligible curses. The group panicked and ran, but the corridor seemed endless. It was as if they were running in circles, unable to find the exit. Lon tripped, and as Nam turned to help her, he felt an icy hand gripping his shoulder. A voice hissed into his ear, "Don't leave, stay with us." The horrific secret. Just as they were about to collapse from exhaustion, the group stumbled into a large room at the end of the hallway. It seemed to be the center of the experiments, with dozens of large glass tanks containing grotesque, half-human, half-animal creatures floating in green liquid. Scattered on the tables were pieces of dismembered bodies stitched together, and a journal describing the doctor's attempts to resurrect souls by fusing bodies. Mai screamed as one of the tanks cracked open, and a deformed hand reached out. Inside was a childlike creature with distorted features and pitch-black eyes. It let out a blood-curdling scream and charged at them. Amid the chaos, Nam spotted a staircase leading upward and yelled, "This way!" The group scrambled up the stairs, only to find the door at the top locked from the outside. The screams and footsteps behind them grew louder. Summoning all his strength, Nam kicked the door open, and the group burst out into the first rays of dawn. The curse. As they looked back, the hospital appeared to collapse in on itself. But in the soft morning light, Lon froze in terror as she spotted the woman standing at a window on the upper floor, her hateful gaze fixed on them. A week later, the group began to suffer from strange incidents. My disappeared without a trace while walking near her home. Hung died in a car accident under mysterious circumstances. Lan woke up every morning with unexplained bruises on her body. Nam, the last survivor, decided to return to the hospital to end everything once and for all. But he never came back. The hospital gates still stand, rusted and silent, waiting for the next curious souls to step into eternal darkness. Would you dare enter those gates? Story 2. The Morgue, an Eternal Curse. Located deep within a forest on the outskirts of the city, Saint and Hospital was once a treatment center for patients with infectious diseases in the 1970s. However, a mysterious disaster claimed the lives of all its staff and patients, leaving the hospital abandoned for over 40 years. The most infamous part of the hospital is its morgue, located in the basement, where hundreds of bodies were stored. Local legends speak of an eternal curse tied to the morgue, with whispers of eerie cries and shadows haunting the hospital every night. The Dare, a group of 4 friends, Lin, Hung, Fong, and Min, decided to explore the abandoned hospital one stormy night, testing their courage. Lin, an aspiring YouTuber obsessed with paranormal videos, convinced the group that it would make for unforgettable footage. Armed with cameras, flashlights, and a crowbar, they ventured into the unknown. Arriving at midnight, the hospital loomed in the darkness like a forgotten relic of despair. The rusty gate creaked ominously as Min pushed it open. Inside, shattered windows, moss-covered walls, and endless dark hallways awaited them. "We'll just record some clips and leave," Lin said, trying to sound confident, though her wide eyes betrayed her excitement. The descent into the basement. Navigating the dark corridors, their flashlights revealed peeling walls and graffiti-like red handprints smeared across the surfaces. Hung stopped in front of a staircase leading down to the basement. "According to the map, the morgue is down there," he whispered, his voice low. The group descended cautiously, each step echoing eerily in the stillness. A cold, damp air enveloped them, and a strong stench of decay made them gag. Deep scratches lined the walls, as if something or someone had desperately tried to escape. At the bottom of the stairs was a large metal door, rusted and locked. "Let me handle this," Fong said, lifting the crowbar. After a few tense moments, the lock broke with a sharp snap, and the door groaned open. A wave of icy air rushed out, sending shivers down their spines. The morgue. The morgue was a chilling sight. Rows of body storage drawers lined the walls, many still closed, while others were slightly ajar, revealing dust-covered gurneys. A large, rusted refrigeration unit stood in one corner, its door half open. Lin began filming, but her camera immediately began to glitch. The screen flickered, revealing faint shadows moving across the frame. "There's something there," Lin stammered, pointing to the screen. The group turned to see one of the body drawers slowly sliding open on its own. Inside was a lump covered by a white sheet. The sheet moved, as if something underneath was trying to get out. Min hesitated but finally pulled the sheet back. Underneath lay a pale, lifeless body with wide, empty eyes and an open mouth frozen in a silent scream. Suddenly, the body jerked, and its cold, skeletal hands reached for Min. The group screamed and bolted out of the room, but the path they had come from was now gone. A maze of terror. The stairs leading back to the upper floors had vanished. Instead, an endless hallway stretched before them, shrouded in shadows. Whispers surrounded them, unintelligible yet menacing, as if a chorus of trapped souls were closing in. "This way," Hung shouted, leading the charge down the hall. But no matter how far they ran, the hallway looped back to the morgue. Suddenly, Min disappeared. Lin spun around just in time to see him being dragged into the darkness by skeletal hands. His terrified face was the last thing they saw before he vanished completely. With no time to process their loss, Lin, Hung, and Fong pressed on, eventually stumbling into another room. It was larger, lined with countless body drawers that began to open in unison. From within, figures emerged, decayed bodies with hollow eyes and twisted smiles, shuffling toward them. "We have to get out of here," Hung yelled, desperately banging on a locked door. Fong swung the crowbar in panic as Lin sobbed uncontrollably. The curse unleashed. Without warning, the lights flickered and then went out entirely. Darkness engulfed the room as the air filled with inhuman screams. Lin felt icy hands wrap around her neck, pulling her into the void. The next day, a local resident discovered Lin's camera abandoned near the hospital gate. The footage captured the group's frantic escape, but it ended abruptly in total darkness. In the final frame, a woman in a blood-stained lab coat stood in the background, her eyes glowing red, before the video cut out. Saint and Hospital still stands, its morgue waiting silently for the next unwitting intruders. Those who dare enter may find themselves ensnared in its eternal curse, never to return. Would you dare to face the darkness? Story 3. The Strange Shadow, Secrets of the Abandoned Hospital. Deep in the countryside, hidden within a dense forest, stood St. Mary's Hospital, a once bustling facility for treating patients with mental disorders and mysterious illnesses. But in 1982, a disaster struck, and everyone in the hospital, staff and patients alike, vanished without a trace. What remained were its empty corridors, desolate patient rooms, and a terrifying legend about a shadowy figure that appeared in the windows at night. Locals whispered that the shadow wasn't human. It had no eyes, no mouth, and anyone who saw it would either disappear or be cursed forever. Despite these warnings, some brave explorers couldn't resist the allure of its mystery. The brave explorers. For friends, Tony, Jelly, Tom, and Jack decided to venture into the abandoned hospital one cloudy night. Tony, an independent filmmaker, was determined to capture something extraordinary for his horror-themed channel. Jelly, a thrill seeker, was eager to explore. Tom, though hesitant, wanted to prove he wasn't a coward, and Jack, the most practical of the group, came along to ensure everyone stayed safe. As they stood before the hospital, an eerie silence enveloped them. The rusty iron gates loomed high, tangled with vines as if nature itself was trying to conceal the building. Beyond the gates, shattered windows and cracked walls gave the hospital an ominous, lifeless look. "We'll just go in, shoot some footage and leave," Tony assured them, though his voice betrayed a hint of unease. The first warning. As the group stepped through the gates, a bone-chilling wind blew past, carrying with it a faint, rancid odor. Jelly shivered. "Does anyone else feel like we're being watched?" "It's just your imagination," Jack replied, though even he glanced nervously around. The group entered the main hall, their flashlights illuminating peeling paint and faded medical posters. Tony raised his camera to start filming, but the screen flickered erratically as if something was interfering with it. Down a long, dark hallway to their right, the faint sound of creaking echoed. Tom froze. "Wait, did anyone else see that?" At the end of the hall, the others turned to look, but whatever had been there was gone. Jelly stepped forward, her flashlight trembling slightly. "We should check it out." The first encounter. Tony replayed his footage. On the screen, a faint shadowy figure appeared at the far end of the hallway. It was tall and featureless, more like an outline of a group exchanged uneasy glances. "This is incredible," Tony said, excitement in his voice. "This is exactly the kind of thing we came for." Jack frowned. "Or maybe it's a sign we should leave." But Jelly was already moving deeper into the hallway. "We didn't come all this way to stop now." The basement. Their exploration led them to a staircase descending into the hospital's basement. The wooden steps groaned under their weight as they descended into the darkness. The air grew colder and more oppressive, carrying the unmistakable stench of decay. At the bottom of the stairs, they found a large metal door secured with a rusted padlock. Jack used a crowbar to force it open, the sound echoing ominously down the corridor. Inside, they found themselves in what appeared to be an old storage room. Along the walls were small, sealed rooms, many with broken doors. Inside, dusty beds and rusty medical equipment lay abandoned. "This place feels wrong," Tom muttered, his voice barely audible. Tony began filming again, but his camera screen glitched. A faint shadow appeared in the corner of the frame, standing perfectly still. The horrific discovery. As they moved deeper into the basement, they stumbled upon a larger room. At its center was an old operating table, still stained with dried blood. Scattered around the room were surgical tools, some still clinging to bits of decayed flesh. But the most disturbing discovery was the walls. They were covered in black and white photographs of patients and staff. In every photo, standing silently in the background, was the same shadowy figure. "This can't be real," Jelly whispered, her voice shaking. On a nearby desk, they found a weather journal. Tony flipped through its brittle pages. The final entry read, "I made a terrible mistake. I opened a door that should never have been opened. And now it's here, watching, waiting." The shadow strikes. Suddenly, the door to the room slammed shut, and the lights of their flashlights began to flicker. In the dim, unsteady light, they saw the shadow. It stood in the doorway, tall and menacing, its faceless form somehow staring right at them. "Run!" Jack shouted, but as they turned to flee, they realized the hallway had changed. The staircase they'd used to descend was gone, replaced by a seemingly endless corridor. As they ran, doors along the hallway burst open, and ghostly figures emerged, faceless, featureless, and whispering in unison. Their voices were unintelligible, but their tone was chilling, filled with malice. Tony dropped his camera in the chaos, but no one stopped to pick it up. A grim fate. They found themselves back in the room they had just fled, as if the building itself was playing with them. The shadowy figure appeared again, this time right in front of them. One by one, the explorers were dragged into the darkness, their screams fading into silence. The next morning, a local resident found Tony's camera lying outside the hospital gates. The final recording showed the group running in terror, their screams echoing through the halls. The last frame captured the shadow, towering over the camera, before the screen went black. A warning: the gates of St. Mary's remain open, inviting the brave or foolish to enter. But remember, once the shadow sees you, there's no escape. Would you dare to face the shadow?